This error in the translation here in Galatians 4:24, Paul is telling of the allegory between Sarah and Isaac and Ishmael and Hagar. How that the old covenant of Mount Sinai, which brought forth or parented or gendered, it bore bondage to Hagar. This word bondage here in Galatians 24, if you look down here, this word bondage is a different Greek word here in Galatians 4:25. The translators, they didn't think it was very important to tell you that. They should have told you that, but they didn't tell you that, because this verse, the meaning and the content of this verse wasn't very important to them. They didn't like it. If you'll notice up here, this Greek word, dulia, brought bondage to Hagar. The meaning of this word in bondage is fear, corruption, death, bondage to evil, to Satan, to bad things. All throughout the New Testament, it is nothing but bad, nothing good ever, ever. Serving Satan, basically someone in bondage here, in this Greek, in bondage here, this Greek word bondage, that they are serving Satan through fear and corruption and death and slavery. They're under the power of satanic influence. But the translators, they decided to ascribe this word here to Hagar as well, because they thought that the Jews should be in bondage. That is the Protestant Catholic religion. So this actual Greek word is a different Greek word, and it means in the New Testament always voluntarily service to the Lord, service to anything with a voluntary act, service to your boss. It is the Greek word dulio. Mount Sinai, which gendereth or made bondage, the allegory is referring to Hagar, and that Jerusalem is now presently in service with her children. This is the way it should have looked in the translation. They should have had the word bondage to Hagar, and they should have had service to Jerusalem. Let us read Galatians 4:29, just a few verses down. But as then he that was born after the flesh persecuted him that was born after the Spirit, even so it is now. If you'll notice in the original manuscripts, this word here is the word that. And this right here, he that was born, he that was, there is no he that was. This word does not exist in the manuscript. The translators just decided that since it was talking about Ishmael, they would just go ahead and throw the word he that was. And since the translators knew that it was probably talking about Isaac, they decided they would just go ahead and throw that was born. But you see, the authors of Galatians 4:29, they were telling you that now still a spiritual persecution is happening. The original authors intends to leave out, and they do leave out, the person of Ishmael. They leave Ishmael out of the verse. They don't mention him as a he or anything, because he's being used as an allegory throughout the entire chapter. They just state the message, saying that as that which was born after flesh, instead of saying as he or Ishmael was born, it says that as that was born after flesh persecuted him after the Spirit, even so now, today, at the time it was written, whom all those who are born after the flesh are still persecuting those who are born after the Spirit. Ishmaelites were not persecuting the Christians when the New Testament was written. But the evil spirit of bondage that Ishmael served and his mother served was still persecuting. The translators changed the meaning of this verse. The verse simply says, but also, but as, but like then, but like that born after flesh, but as that born after flesh persecuted him after the Spirit, even so now. This is what the translators do. It's okay to do all this, to put in he that was born and him that was born and it is now. But that's not what the original was saying. The translators tried to doctor it up and make it sound different than what it really was intended to say. And here again in the same chapter, the translators, they mistranslated the whole meaning of this entire verse right here. Let's read it. Galatians 4:27. But written, rejoice, barren, bearing not. Rejoice, barren, bearing not. Break forth and cry, travailing not. For the desolate hath many, many more children than she which hath an husband. For the desolate hath many, many more children than she which hath an husband. But the translators added this word right here, she which. There is no she in the verse. Really what the original authors were just basically simply saying was that, but written, rejoice, barren, you don't bear, or bearing not. Break forth and cry, you travail not. For the desolate has many more children rather than having a husband. It was talking about Hagar and Sarah. Sarah was barren. She couldn't have children. It was used as an allegoric, metaphoric, comparable parable, that even though a desolate woman such as Hagar would have many more children, she has children but she has no husband. That was the point of the verse.